Saul Leiter was a master of color photography, but to call him a pioneer would be to undermine the beauty and depth of his work. He never cared for such labels, as he was more focused on capturing the essence of his surroundings and the people who inhabited them. Leiter's street photography was a celebration of the world around him. With each click of his camera, he immortalized the intricate layers and vivid colors that make life so magical. His use of color was nothing short of brilliant, with each hue and shade perfectly complementing the subject and creating a sense of emotion that was palpable. Despite his undeniable talent, it wasn't until late in his life that Leiter received the recognition he deserved. In 2006, at the age of 83, his first book of color work was published, and it became a sensation. What he called his little book was no small feat. It was a masterpiece that established him as a groundbreaking master of color photography, almost overnight. The late discovery of his vast body of work was bittersweet. While it was a triumph for Leiter, it was a reminder that true artists are often overlooked in their lifetime. Nonetheless, the impact of his legacy is immeasurable, and it has changed the history of street photography forever. His work continues to inspire and evoke emotions, reminding us that there is beauty to be found in even the most mundane of moments. Saul Leiter was a true visionary, and his contribution to the art world will never be forgotten. The American artist Saul Leiter was born in Pittsburgh in 1923, and was the son of a rabbi and a distinguished Talmudic scholar. Leiter developed an interest in painting during his late teenage years. At the age of 22 in 1946, he left the theological college he was attending in Cleveland and moved to New York City to pursue painting. Soon after his arrival, he met Richard Poussin d'Art, an abstract expressionist painter who was also experimenting with photography. Leiter's friendship with Poussin d'Art and later W. Eugene Smith, as well as the photography exhibitions he attended in New York, particularly Henri Cartier-Bresson's at the Museum of Modern Art in 1947, served as inspiration for his own work. In 1948, Saul Leiter began experimenting with color photography, often using Kodachrome 35mm film that was past its expiration date. He primarily focused on street scenes and his close circle of friends. During the 1950s, Leiter had a highly prolific period in New York City and made a significant and unique contribution to photography. His abstracted forms, and innovative compositions, had a painterly quality that set him apart from his contemporaries in the New York school. Even his earliest black and white and color photographs demonstrate an exceptional affinity for the medium. Edward Station included Leiter's black and white photographs in the exhibition Always the Young Strangers, at the Museum of Modern Art in 1953. Station also featured 20 of Leiter's color photographs in his Slide Talk Experimental Photography in Color at MoMA in 1957. Starting in 1958, the art director Henry Wolfe published Leiter's color fashion work, in Esquire, and later in Harper's Bazaar. Leiter continued to work as a fashion photographer for the next 20 years and was also published in Show, Elle, British Vogue, Queen, and Nova. In the early 1980s, Leiter faced financial difficulties that forced the closure of his Fifth Avenue studio. For the next 2 decades, he lived and worked virtually unknown. In 2006, with the help of the art historian Martin Harrison and the Howard Greenberg Gallery, the groundbreaking monograph Saul Leiter, Early Color was published by Gerhard Stiedel in Germany. Leiter called the book his little book, and it became an overnight sensation with worldwide distribution. This firmly established the artist as an early pioneer in the history of color photography. In 2006, the Milwaukee Museum of Art held the first U.S. museum show of Leiter's photographs. 2 years later, in 2008, Leiter traveled to Paris for his first European exhibition at the Fondation Henri Cartier-Bresson. Additionally, in 2008, Leiter had his first painting exhibition in 30 years at the Nodeler Gallery in New York. The artist was the subject of Tomas Leach's highly acclaimed 2013 documentary, Saul Leiter, In No Great Hurry, which continues to be shown at film festivals throughout the US, Europe, and Japan. Leiter has been prominently featured in solo museum and gallery shows in the US and Europe. His work is included in the collections of the Museum of Modern Art, the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, the Art Institute of Chicago, the Baltimore Museum of Art, the Victoria and Albert Museum, the National Gallery of Australia, the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Milwaukee Art Museum, the Yale University Art Gallery, and other prestigious public and private collections. Saul Leiter passed away at his home in New York City's East Village on November 26, 2013, leaving behind an immense archive of his life's work in art. In the New York Times obituary on Leiter, Margaret Fox writes, "Of the tens of thousands of images he shot, many now esteemed as among the finest examples of street photography in the world, most remain unprinted." After the Second World War, photography was mainly in black and white, with emphasis on elements like clarity, focus, and subject. When Saul Leiter moved to New York at the age of 23, he realized that black and white photography was much cheaper due to the processing, developing, and film costs. This is why it was more commonly used. In the high arts, color photographs were seen as inferior since anyone could take a color photograph. The real skill lay in black and white photography. However, Leiter started manipulating black and white photography early on. He focused more on context, depicting abstract segments and movement. This resulted in creating a unique narrative style in his images. This unique style reflected the fluid and real New York City. Let's take a look at some of his black and white work below. During the 1940s and 1950s, color photography in New York was not considered an art form, but rather something vulgar and lacking artistic merit. However, it was during this period that Saul Leiter began to experiment with different techniques to manipulate photography. Influenced by the abstract expressionist movement, he began capturing snippets of everyday life, often distorted and blurry, with a particular interest in reflections, fragments, and unexpected angles. One of his most striking works is the book Early Color, which features some of his earliest experiments with color photography. The images in this book, such as Through Boards, Canopy, and Foot on L, draw the viewer's attention to a precise moment in time while retaining a delicate aesthetic beauty through the use of contrast in color, subject, or emphasis. Canopy, which is one of Leiter's most well-known photographs, works similarly to black and white photography. It is predominantly colorless, drawing attention to the expanding black and gray areas. However, it also manages to capture the color of that grayness, which is distinguishable only through the subject's faces and the hint of pale nude tones. This freeze-frame moment perfectly encapsulates the reality of winter in the city. Leiter's photographs are often framed in an abstract, hidden way, which stimulates the viewer's imagination, reflection, and creativity. Although they are simple conceptual ideas, they add different dimensions to his work through obstructive objects, surfaces, reflections, and concepts, making his photographs both highly pleasurable and thought-provoking. Let's take a look at some of your most representative color photos. Saul Leiter was an artist who created various types of artwork, including abstract expressionistic paintings. These paintings were unique because they featured pictures of naked women, with bright and vibrant colors layered on top of them. Leiter had a talent for using color to convey emotions, and this was particularly evident in these paintings. In these artworks, the naked women were depicted in a playful and joyful manner, and the colors used were explosive and intricate. This made the paintings even more exceptional, as they showcased Leiter's innate ability to manipulate expression through color. The black and white nudes would certainly not be mediocre by themselves, but they would be lacking in Leiter's style. The use of colors such as yellow and green brought the women in the paintings to life, as they embodied the colors that were assigned to them. These paintings were a testament to Leiter's skill as a color artist and photographer, as they demonstrated how he was able to capture and express something that went beyond the image itself. So, let's take a look at Saul Leiter's work as it pertains to painting. I would like to conclude this video by saying that Saul Leiter was an artist who transcended the boundaries of conventional photography. He delved into a world of pastel tones and large areas of color, creating unique and abstract compositions. Leiter did not allow himself to be guided by fame, but instead maintained his humility until the end of his days. With his sensitivity and alternative way of seeing the world, he challenged all the rules of his time and created a body of work that only began to be recognized decades later. It was in the late 90s, when the public began to discover Leiter's work. Finally, in 2013, after his passing, he was given the recognition he so deserved. Without a doubt, Saul Leiter is an example of how perseverance and creativity can break down the barriers of the established, and take us to unknown and wonderful places. Alongside other influential photographers of the New York School of Photography, Leiter is remembered for revolutionizing the use of color photography, its perceptions, and boundaries. His iconic photographs are tantalizing fragments and unique reflections. They reflect much more than a snatch of color of a passing car on a shop vitrine. They reflect the outside world, a movement, and an era full of experimentation and diversity. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. This way, you'll always stay up to date with all the videos I produce here. Until the next one. Catch you later.